Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And we finally made it! After a year plus of waiting for the Snyder Cut, it has finally arrived. We are reviewing it this episode. There is a lot to talk about. The film is 4+ hours long.
Hopefully this review will not be as long.
No way. We would be up until like 8 in the morning of the next day.
That being said, we also do break up our episode in chapters, so you can skip ahead throughout the episode if you want to jump to a specific topic. Because before we get into the review, we're going to go over the comic book movie news from the past week, including the news that an Hourman film is in development, and the news that Venom There Be Carnage has been moved to September 17th. We want to give a huge shout out to a new patron of ours, Ryan Butuyan. I think that's how you pronounce it. If not, please, Ryan, reach out to us, let us know, and thank you so much for supporting the show.
Yeah, anyone who's listening, don't forget that this podcast now has a card game out called Dynamic Duel War that you can find out how to get by joining us on Patreon. If you want to have fun simulating battles between Marvel and DC characters, check us out on patreon.com/dynamicduel.
And just a quick reminder, guys, to please subscribe to our show if you haven't already. And if you have, please help us grow our podcast audience by leaving a quick rating or review on whatever platform you're listening to us on. We want to give a shout out to 2 reviewers who rated us on Apple Podcasts, one Elmo900 and it looks like they just smashed their keyboard. Thank you guys so much for your reviews and for interacting with our show. But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize.
A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award we post on social media that Jonathan personally draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question tied into the news that Billy Crudup would not be returning as Henry Allen in the upcoming Flash movie. So we asked, which actor has left a role in a Marvel or DC film or show that you really wish had stayed?
We got so many great answers for this, it was hard narrowing it down to just 3 honorable mentions and the No Prize winner, but let's go through those. Our first honorable mention goes to Max from the Ready to Retro podcast, who has been a guest on the show, and we reviewed the Spider-Man film. Definitely check that episode out and check out his podcast, Ready to Retro. That's the numeral 2. But his answer was...
This is Max from Ready to Retro. My answer to this week's question is Hugo Weaving, who played the Red Skull in the first Captain America movie. Although it's getting better of late, Marvel has been criticized for having less than dynamic villains. Along with Weaving's award-winning acting and the deep history of the Red Skull, I feel like Weaving's departure really hindered for some great storylines, not just with Cap, but with the MCU as a whole.
Yeah, and the Red Skull is one of those classic arch nemesis. For an iconic hero like Captain America, it would have been great to see those characters meet again, in modern day, and just continue to go at it.
Yeah, the Red Skull definitely has the potential to be more than just a one-and-done villain. We were fortunate again to see him in Infinity War and Endgame, but it wasn't Hugo Weaving that was in the role, it was Ross Marquand doing basically a Hugo Weaving impression.
A really good one.
A really good one, but when you have an actor that's the caliber of Hugo Weaving, you just want to see him back. Our next honorable mention goes to John Speas of the Blast from Our Past podcast, who was also a guest on this show, also has a great podcast. Check out the Blast from Our Past, and check out the episodes where they guested on this show, reviewing X-Men Origins Wolverine and Batman, the movie from the 1960s. His answer was...
Hey boys, this is John over at Blast from Our Past. For me, this is an easy one. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I don't care how old he gets. I think he can come back as many times as he wants, especially now with everything going into the MCU. So I'll hold tight. Maybe it'll happen. We'll see.
In general, seeing Hugh Jackman leave the role of Wolverine was hard to deal with. I'm really glad that he got the send-off that he did in the Logan movie, but it would have been great to see him interact with the other cast of characters from the MCU. Especially with Robert Downey Jr., that also sucks because he's not in that role anymore. So it's just wishful thinking for something that likely will never happen.
I mean, you never know. They're also bringing back, Michael Keaton in DC. They're bringing back Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx in Marvel.
Yeah, that's true. I guess if they ever wanted to go the multiverse route, you could always have Hugh Jackman come back as Old Man Logan from a separate universe than the Logan movie.
Yeah, as long as they don't pull an Evan Peters on us.
Yeah, and call him Boner.
Yes.
Old Boner Logan. God.
Our final honorable mention goes to Harrison Fox, who said,
Hey guys, Harrison Fox here. So the actor who I wished had stayed on is Val Kilmer as Batman. Now, don't get me wrong, I will always take Michael Keaton as the superior 90s era Batman, but when Kilmer left, we got George Clooney and his bat nipples. And that is just unacceptable.
Now I have to agree, as much as I preferred Michael Keaton as Batman, I also prefer Val Kilmer vastly to George Clooney.
Yeah, we recently reviewed the Batman and Robin film and expressed our thoughts about George Clooney there. We thought he was a decent Bruce Wayne, but a horrible fucking Batman. That being said, he was not the first 90s Batman to have the bat nips. That was Val Kilmer in his second suit within the Batman Forever movie.
Yeah, what was it, like the sonar suit, I think?
Yeah, yep. But Val Kilmer's bat nipples were just like dots, as opposed to George Clooney's, which had like the areola and the...
Just hearing that word, I'm like, ugh.
Great answer, Harrison. Before we name our No Prize winner, we want to give a quick shout out to everyone who reached out to us and left us an answer on our website,
including Zachary Hepburn, Nate, John Starosky, Jacob Bell, and Shane Habizin.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to reach out to us. We love hearing your messages. But the winner for this week's No Prize goes to Al Gustafsson, who said,
Hey guys, Al Gustafsson from Denmark. So in terms of question of the week, I'm going to go with Chadwick Boseman. I guess a lot of guys are going to name him, but still I'd love to see him in the Black Panther fulfilling his role. I love his calm attitude and the way he speaks. So, yeah, we're not going to see any more from that guy, unfortunately. But, yeah, stay safe.
And this answer hits a little bit different from the others because with the other roles, the actors left. And with Chadwick Boseman in Black Panther, he unfortunately passed away. And he is absolutely the actor I would most want to see come back into the role because it would mean that we got him back. We know that Black Panther 2 is not going to be featuring him in that role and that they're going to go a different route, telling the story of like maybe Shuri's Black Panther or something like that. But if and when they do recast, it's just not going to be the same. It won't ever be the same. He defined the role just as much as Christopher Reeve did or Heath Ledger, and both of those actors also passed away. I like Al's description of Chadwick Boseman's performance, where it was really subdued. You know, Chadwick Boseman was a chill guy with just this unbeatable cool. We'll always remember. So fantastic answer.
And just to note, no two people who submitted an answer gave the same response.
Yeah, we also got Patrick Stewart,
Ryan Reynolds,
Ben Affleck,
and the director Edgar Wright. Though those last two kind of didn't count because Ben Affleck is returning as Batman and Edgar Wright was a director.
But yeah, congrats again to Al Gustafsson for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news. Okay, so in a surprise bit of news, it was announced on March 17th that an Hourman film was in the works with writers Gavin James and Neil Widener. Now, those two don't really have any writing credits to their names. It seems like all of the projects they're working on are upcoming projects, such as San Andreas 2 and Now You See Me 3.
Okay. So that doesn't bode well, I don't think.
It kind of doesn't. But I feel like Warner Brothers and DC have been sort of trying to push a Hourman film for quite some time. I remember back when I think even before the Flash TV show came out, they were hinting at an Hourman television series for Warner Brothers. That never happened, but we did get to see Hourman in the Stargirl series, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, out of all the JSA characters they could have chose, I'm kind of surprised that they went with Hourman. It really seems like DC is pushing the JSA in general, perhaps to get more DC team content out there not related to Justice League.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. This may be a way to push Justice Society, because we know Hourman's also going to be a member of the upcoming animated film, Justice Society World War II.
Now, we know that other JSA characters like Hawkman, Cyclone, Atom Smasher, they're all being introduced in the Black Adam movie, and I'm wondering if that movie is going to take place within the same universe as this Hourman film.
It would be kind of cool if DC was sort of taking the Marvel route with the building of the Justice Society team, and that like characters would get individual films before they all kind of built up to this greater team film. It didn't quite work out that way with Justice League, but luckily Warner Brothers and DC have another property to do that.
Yeah, and that way you don't get a 4-hour film where you have to go through new character introductions.
I mean, that also is really amazing.
Is it though?
It is.
Okay,
it is.
Right.
Yes.
Now, do you think this film is going to focus on Rex Tyler or Rick Tyler or even the android Hourman?
I think the great thing about an Hourman film is you could kind of focus on all three. Because of the time travel aspect of the character, they could all sort of exist in the same movie, as it were.
Do you think in addition to the time travel aspect of the character, they'll also touch on the addiction aspect?
If they didn't, I think they would be missing out on a pretty integral component of the character. He does take a drug called Miraclo to get his superpowers, and it is addictive. The character of Rick Tyler has at times been severely addicted to the drug. It's just a really interesting and unique aspect of the character, I think.
Yeah, and I think it would send a positive message given that eventually he is able to overcome his addiction. If you guys want to learn more about Hourman, go ahead and listen to our Hourman versus Bishop episode.
Yeah, I actually really liked that matchup.
In other news, we learned this past week that the film Venom, Let There Be Carnage, that's been pushed back to September 17th.
Yeah, it looks like Fast and Furious, 11?
9.
Might as well be 11. Kind of scared Sony, causing it to push it back.
Yeah, that was kind of a power move by Universal Studios, moving the Fast and Furious film to the same date as the Venom sequel. You know, you can't compete with Fast and the Furious. It's just a huge franchise. It's going to make all the money that weekend. And Venom had to make the hard decision to move back to the fall, which is probably a better spot for it, considering that more theaters will be open at that time. That being said, it's becoming such a crowded year for films, given that, you know, not a lot of them released last year. Venom is still going to struggle going up against these other films that are coming out that day, including Death on the Nile, Boss Baby sequel.
Oh, jeez.
Fucking, that's going to make bank. But as not ideal as that day is, it's more ideal than this previous summer day when not only would it be going up against different competition, but again, not as many theaters would be open.
I think the closer you put it to Halloween, the better, probably.
Yeah, it's not a bad season.
There's been a lot of films with success in the fall, like Joker.
That's true.
I do have to say, though, if I had a choice between seeing Venom and Gal Gadot, who's in Death in the Nile, I'm going to choose Gal Gadot.
Stop thinking with your dick.
I'm not. It looks like a good movie.
Oh, yeah?
Kinda, yeah.
Who else is in it?
Fuck. Kenneth Branagh.
Okay, you pass.
Yay!
All right. Your wife will let you off the hook this time.
Yes.
But, you know, in regards to the whole topic of movie theaters reopening and when people are comfortable getting back into theater seats, that brings us to our question of the week. When is the earliest you can see yourself going back to theaters to watch films? Whether that's immediately or a year from now or however you feel, let us know. We're interested in hearing your answer.
Yeah, super interested. I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to go back.
Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message can be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media. Be sure to answer before March 27th. But that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and get into our main event, where we reviewed the long-awaited HBO Max film, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
So Zack Snyder's Justice League was finally revealed to the public via HBO Max this past week after years and years of fans demanding it from Warner Brothers. If you're not aware of the legend of the Snyder Cut of the film, let me prologue this review with a somewhat brief recap. After the success of Christopher Nolan's Batman films, Warner Brothers wanted to capitalize on their success by rebooting Superman with a similar tone. Nolan helped select Zack Snyder as the director to undertake that project, which proved to be controversial when audiences and critics complained that the film was too serious in tone, costing The Man of Steel and its sequel, Batman v Superman, also directed by Zack Snyder, hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office. By the time Batman v Superman was finished, Warner Brothers had lost faith that Zack Snyder could deliver them the sweet, sweet box office cash that the Marvel Cinematic Universe was generating, and they stepped in to make the film more consumer-friendly, though I would argue also less comprehensive, as anyone can see by comparing the theatrical version of Batman vs. Superman to Zack Snyder's Ultimate Edition that was released on video later on.
Yeah, we have reviews for both of those films. I believe we gave Batman v Superman's theatrical cut 3.5 stars, and we gave the Ultimate Edition 4 stars.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a drastically different film, much like how Zack Snyder's Justice League is drastically different from the theatrical cut.
Exactly. Now, despite Warner Brothers' lack of faith in Snyder, they let him make Justice League, though it wasn't long before they began meddling during production, even hiring a new writer, Joss Whedon, to rewrite some of the film. Now, Joss Whedon directed the first 2 Avengers films for Marvel, each of which had grossed over $1 billion at the box office.
Yeah, hell yeah!
So Warner Brothers felt that they had a sure thing. Rather than fight back against the studio, Zack Snyder, whose daughter Autumn had recently tragically committed suicide, left the film to spend time healing with his family over their loss. Joss Whedon took over the film as its new director, and the film still ended up a critical and commercial failure. Not everyone, myself included, hated Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, however, and those fans insisted that there must be a superior cut of the Justice League film made by Zack Snyder somewhere in the studio vaults. After years of campaigning, buying sky banners and billboards asking Warner Brothers to release the Snyder Cut, it was finally announced last year that it would be released on Warner Brothers' new streaming platform, HBO Max, in 2021. And here we are.
This whole thing is rather unprecedented. It's almost disruptive to the traditional studio-director relationship. And it really goes to show that, if you give the fans what they want, they will pay for it.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
ultimately the best business decision you can make as a studio, is to give the fans what they want.
Although studios, especially Warner Brothers, not gonna lie, are still learning that.
I don't get it.
Now, the biggest question that anyone had about the Snyder Cut, other than whether it existed, was whether or not it would be better than the Joss Whedon version. The answer is yes. It's a much better film.
Yeah.
Every fan of Zack Snyder who helped get the Snyder Cut released should feel very vindicated, and all the haters can die in hell.
That's fucked up.
Well, it's hard to say that this is the Snyder Cut.
Take it down a notch.
That would have originally been released in theaters and had gone on to win billions of dollars in critical acclaim.
Okay.
It does come across as an uncompromised version of the film, being presented in a 4:3 aspect ratio and clocking in at over 4 hours in length. There's a lot of story here, a lot to talk about. I seriously doubt anyone who waited years for the Snyder Cut would have waited to watch it until they heard whether we recommended it, but just in case, here's your spoiler warning.
That being said, if you have not seen the film and you're trying to gauge whether or not you will like the film, the answer lies with whether or not you appreciated Zack Snyder's vision before. If you absolutely despised Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, this movie is not going to do anything for you. But if you liked Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, this movie is going to be fantastic for you.
Yeah, odds are you're going to love this one. I did, and I loved BVS, the Ultimate Edition, and Man of Steel both. Also, in terms of spoilers, I think part of the fun of watching this cut is finding out what was originally shot by Zack Snyder and what wasn't. So don't ruin that for yourself if you haven't seen the film. There was a surprising amount that was different in this cut, and I kind of knew that going into it, but it was still a surprise to me. Now, like the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman, this film ultimately proved that Warner Brothers was wrong to meddle in a project that had such a visionary director at the helm. Now, people may scoff at Zack Snyder's films, but they can't deny he has a vision. People complain that it's too dark for DC, but as a comic book reader and DC Comics fan, I respect Zack Snyder for taking these characters and stories so seriously. I mean, some of my favorite comics that I've read, The Dark Knight Returns, Kingdom Come, Sandman, Watchmen, they didn't go out of their way to make me laugh. They were trying to tell these larger-than-life stories in this universe that allows you to do that. I think the general public continues to think of comic book stories and characters as something non-literary, as something not serious or worthwhile enough to consider high art. But Zack Snyder does.
Zack Snyder strives for high art, but he doesn't succeed for the most part. There are some things that I think that he does that are quite breathtaking, but it is kind of a sophomoric approach to high art, because he's also throwing in a lot of pop elements.
Well, he's a music video director, It's a music video director aiming for high art.
That definitely shows, because I feel like every 10 minutes in this movie there was a music video going on.
I mean, people can feel differently about how artistic Snyder is and how he represents DC's characters, but it should be evident by this point that he recognizes the epic and mythological nature of the DC universe as a whole.
Absolutely, and I think that's the primary way he distinguishes DC heroes from Marvel heroes, and that's just true in general, but he's the one that really hammers it home, in that Marvel superheroes are relatable, grounded, pop culture characters, whereas DC characters he views as more modern mythology, and there's a difference between the two.
Yeah, he explicitly described, Marvel films as heartfelt action comedies. And DC can do that, but why not go deeper than that? Like, why make a Batman Forever when you could make The Dark Knight? DC has always prided itself on originality, so I would never want them to copy something someone else is doing, especially Marvel. And Zack Snyder doesn't want that either.
I mean, that's what Joss Whedon did with his cut of Justice League. He tried to make it a Marvel film, and he brought his Marvel sensibilities to it, and that's what the studio was really asking for.
And that's ultimately what made it such a failure.
In part, yeah.
I understand Warner Brothers wanting to make MCU-level money, but that's not going to happen without someone like Kevin Feige producing a cinematic universe. And so far, for the time being, Zack Snyder has been the closest thing to that for the studio, having produced or executive produced all of the DCEU films except for Shazam and Birds of Prey, I believe.
And Joker, of course, but that wasn't DCEU.
Right. I like this film a lot. I think this is my favorite DC film ever. I think it's definitely the most important. Not only is it about the Justice League, but it culminates a trilogy of a visionary director like Zack Snyder in this massive superhero epic. It's exciting, it's gorgeous, it's an emotional saga, and it fulfilled everything I would have wanted from a Justice League film compared to the previous version that left me wanting.
So you would say that you were extremely satisfied with the end result that you got?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But do you still wish it could have been edited down? Because that's my main wish. I'm entirely satisfied with what we got. I would say that it's great, but it's also not necessarily great because of what it also includes, which is a little bit too much.
Yeah, you and I watched the film together and have kind of gone back and forth over whether the pacing of the film was good. I didn't think this film was poorly paced because I didn't watch it from the viewpoint that it was a theatrical film or experience. I didn't feel it was overly long in the same way I didn't feel something like WandaVision or HBO's Watchmen was overly long. I don't mind binging hours of television episodes, and this film was so episodic, it felt like I was simply just binging this epic, long-form Justice League story. For the most part, I wouldn't have trimmed anything about the film.
That being said, okay, so you chose to view this movie as a series. Now, we all know that it was originally intended to be a series, and that was changed at the 11th hour.
Yeah, a 6-part series is what the film was edited to be.
Yeah, and it shows the way they break it down in chapters. I think if I had watched this a chapter at a time, a week at a time, I wouldn't have had any problems with the pacing. But the fact that we chose to sit down and view all of this in one 4-hour sitting made it more difficult. I would not recommend that actually anybody watch it that way. I would recommend that people watch it as much as they can stand for as long as it takes their ass to go numb, and then come back and then view the rest, because it's just too much. Parts of it feel like the last 45 minutes of the Return of the King, Lord of the Rings movie.
I mean, you could go ahead and bemoan about what you feel should have been cut from the film, but in the end, I care more about the integrity of Zack Snyder's vision than your attention span.
No. But this movie could have been cut down, and likely would have been cut down if it was released as a single film in theaters.
And Zack Snyder has said as much. He said that, there is a 2-hour and 20-minute cut of this film.
Yeah.
He also said there's a 3-hour cut and a 3.5-hour cut and a 5-hour cut.
Oh, God.
And a 6-hour cut.
No.
But what he gave us is what he chose to give us. It was his favored version of the film.
For an episodic release.
Yes, exactly.
I still want to see his version that would have been released in theaters.
I don't mind the length. When I watch other film epics like Ben-Hur or the extended editions of Lord of the Rings, I go into it knowing I'm going to spend a lot of time with these characters. And I personally loved, again, every moment I could get with the Justice League, because I may not get more of that for a while.
Fair enough. I wouldn't say that this movie was paced like a Ben-Hur or Lord of the Rings, because those didn't feel episodic. But you got to know what you're going into when you're going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's true. I do think that part of the success of this film, more than any other, hinges on how closely it adhered to Zack's vision. Like the film itself, the behind-the-scenes story is one of sacrifice and redemption. They go hand in hand, hence the title of this movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League.
My take on Zack Snyder's Justice League is that it's still not necessarily the best version of this film. There were, ironically, some parts of Joss Whedon's Justice League that I actually enjoyed better. Some elements from that movie.
Sacrilege! Fuck off!
I actually really enjoyed Joss Whedon's dialogue more than Zack Snyder's.
What?
I thought there were some lines from Joss Whedon's film that would have done better in this movie.
Like what?
Well, there are a ton of examples, but one is like when Cyborg is like, what part of this looks like a gift? But Joss Whedon is a little bit more clever, where he's like, if this is a gift, why am I paying for it? Just little things like that were scattered throughout the whole movie.
I'm willing to sacrifice that line and other lines like about brunch in order to have the epicness of the Zack Snyder's version. To me, that's a small sacrifice. Little bits of clever dialogue. I don't need it.
I also do like some of the character arcs from Joss Whedon's movie, such as Lois Lane's. I like how in Joss Whedon's cut, Lois Lane went back to work because that's the thing that she knows best. That's very in keeping with the character of Lois Lane as a Daily Planet reporter. In this movie, she literally did nothing but mope around. And yeah, I understand she's sad, but I feel like the way that Lois would handle grief would be through her work.
She's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. She could write about her grief. Just let her dwell in it and sit in it and then write an article about it.
Yeah, but she doesn't write about her grief. But in Joss Whedon's Justice League, she did. And she gave a great ending kind of speech narration at the end of that film. And I think that was sorely missed as well. Lois's whole arc, I would have rather kept from Joss Whedon's version.
Even the part where she's thirsty?
Fuck no.
Oh, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, well, then I'll take that. I feel like that's a small sacrifice to make for the better servicing of the character.
Well, in terms of Lois Lane, he's letting her stew in her grief a little bit longer, with her arc being, hey, Lois, maybe you should get back to the real world before she does.
It still feels out of character for who I know Lois Lane to be.
You don't
within
fucking
DC
know Lois
Comics.
Lane. I know Lois Lane.
Okay. She was always this independent spirit. Do you think she would cope more like Joss Whedon portrayed her or more like Zack Snyder? Lois Lane has always been someone who got into shit because she wouldn't stop being ambitious.
Regardless of whether she would. No, in the comics, I wouldn't say she necessarily went back to work, but she definitely investigated like Superman's missing body and then wrote an article about Project Cadmus.
Yeah. Right.
That said, I would have much rather had the film establish the new characters in The Flash, in Aquaman, in Cyborg than revisit Lois Lane. It was fine what they did with her, with just her grieving.
You know what's funny, though, is that they could have used the time showing her sit on her ass, showing her doing something more interesting. It would have taken the exact same amount of time, and it would have been truer to character. Just admit that.
What would she have been researching? That would have only been interesting if we knew what she was writing about.
She was writing about a world without Superman in that movie.
Amy Adams' Lois Lane has already had plenty of character development over the course of 2 films prior.
She did have something to do in this movie, though. You could have set that up better. Instead of showing her walk for 40 minutes from a coffee shop in slow motion.
All she had to do in this film was just be there for Superman. She really didn't have anything to do in this film.
And even that they did wrong. Because I also preferred how Lois was Batman's backup plan. Whereas this movie, she just happened to be there. Luckily, she saved Batman's life because Batman didn't have a fucking backup plan in this movie.
Batman didn't know that Superman was going to come back confused.
And yet he would have prepared for it regardless, because that's what Batman does. He prepares for all eventualities. It's okay for there to be some things that were better in the theatrical cut than this version. This version was not supremely superior. It was mostly better.
You're a fucking Joss Whedon sympathizer.
No, I'm not.
This guy's a fucking Joss Whedon sympathizer.
What?
Fuck this guy.
No way. Not me. Not this guy.
That's basically what you're saying right now.
No. I don't condone any Joss Whedon stuff. But
except his writing.
Okay, yeah.
His sexist writing about being thirsty and shit.
What?
And falling on Wonder Woman's boobs.
No.
That's what you like.
Okay, nice deflection. Just do that rather than own up to the possibility that, yeah, there may have been some things done better in the other version. That's not to discount all the stuff that this movie did better.
Here's the thing. In the same way that the theatrical version of Batman v Superman is dead to me. So is the Joss Whedon version. I don't even want to pretend that it even exists, okay? It's dead to me. I don't care if some parts were better or not. Ultimately, the preferred version and the version that I love is this one.
You're getting a little emotional about this.
Whatever, dude. I'm not crying. You're crying. Let's get into the character breakdown, starting with Batman. Now, Batman kind of took a backseat to Bruce Wayne in this version of the film. That wasn't necessarily a bad thing, though, because I really like Zack Snyder's Bruce Wayne. Ben Affleck is still, in my opinion, the most comics-accurate version of Batman, despite, the killing from BVS. He does some killing in this film, too, but they're parademons. They mentioned in the film that when the three mother boxes join together and form the Unity, the planet is terraformed into a planet like Apocalypse, and all the survivors are transformed into parademons. Now, this is the one conflicting bit of information I found from Snyder's original plans for this film. Originally, the parademons were going to be like vampires, capable of turning others into parademons just like them. We saw this transformation take place very briefly in the original film when this man in the ancient war against Uxas was transforming while screaming into the sky as he was becoming a parademon. My theory is that the whole parademon vampirism angle was cut by Snyder after he heard the criticism of Batman's killing. People would have complained again if he was straight up killing parademon humans instead of trying to change them back.
So he just left the parademons as aliens.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, there are a lot of parallels, I find, between the themes within the film and the behind-the-scenes story of the film. Bruce's arc was all about faith, about following his gut as opposed to rationality to build a team and resurrect Superman. This was a natural progression of his arc from BVS, in which he didn't have faith that someone as powerful as Superman could be good and beneficial for mankind. Batman should have had faith in Superman, just as Warner Brothers should have had faith in Zack Snyder. Yeah, Man of Steel and BVS weren't the most successful of films, but rather than giving in to rationality by hiring a quote-unquote sure thing in Joss Whedon to take over, they should have left him alone to complete his vision. Ultimately, Batman and Warner Brothers gained faith and resurrected the things they shouldn't have killed.
That's a nice parallel. That whole angle for Batman did feel slightly out of character, but in a good way, because it was refreshing to see Batman take an approach that he's never really taken before. So I liked that expansion upon his role in this movie. Other than that, there didn't seem to be too many differences. He was still really cool. Loved all the gadgets that he had in this. I really liked the gauntlets that he was given by Alfred.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great addition.
He was less jokey in this version of the film.
Yeah, thank God.
I mean, that's in keeping with the character.
It is kind of weird that we didn't see Batman even show up in this film until halfway through it at the 2-hour mark. That was a little bit disappointing. I think they should have had one scene early on with him, kind of like they did in the Joss Whedon cut. But
jeez. I will concede one thing. I actually really did like that early Batman scene in the Joss Whedon cut of him like going around like the water tower and stuff against that criminal.
Yeah, I'm glad they ditched the smelling fear aspect and the whole exploding parademon turning into 3 boxes.
Yeah. I mean, that didn't even make sense because we had no idea how Batman even knew about parademons. They never explained that. Yeah. But then again, the film doesn't exist, so what the fuck am I talking about?
You're just talking crazy, man. I am really glad that Ben Affleck will be returning to the role one more time in the upcoming Flash movie. It'll be good to see him get a send-off.
And holy crap, if this film does well, I really hope they make that Deathstroke versus Batman movie. That would be amazing.
Oh, yes. That would be epic.
How the fuck are they not going to make that movie? That movie needs to be made. Come on.
That actually kind of pisses me off.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Hashtag release the Deathstroke Batman film. Moving on to Wonder Woman. I've said it before, and I'll say it forever. Gal Gadot is the perfect Wonder Woman, and I love the warrior version of her we got to see here after Wonder Woman 1984.
Yes.
She was so fucking hardcore brutal in this film, but also so graceful. It was just perfection.
The great thing about Wonder Woman that I think we missed from 1984 is, yeah, there's 2 sides to her. There's the warrior side and the peacekeeper side, But when you have the warrior side, you still have that dichotomy because she is such a peaceful character when she's not tearing you to shreds. Like, she's not like a gritty character, And I think that's what people think the warrior version is.
It doesn't have to be at all.
Yeah. I really liked how she was kind of an archaeologist explorer in this movie more.
Yeah, I loved the tomb raiding scene with her. Like, it gave her a little bit more to do and made her like the de facto historian of the group, like a Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones type of angle. I think that's a brilliant way to handle the character.
I would love to see an entire movie of her like exploring Greek mythological stuff and then like fighting Greek monsters of myth.
Yeah, like Medusa or something like that.
Yes!
That would have been such a better sequel than 1984. Like, Wonder Woman just travels the world, putting together clues along with Barbara and Minerva in order to locate the hidden location of Themyscira. Why?
That's right, because Barbara Ann Minerva was an archaeologist.
Yeah.
Oh, God, they dropped the fucking ball.
Plus, her whole arc really is tied into that of her mother, Hippolyta, right? I mean, actually, you could say most of the League's members' arcs were tied to their parents in some way. You know, after Steppenwolf decimated the Amazons, Hippolyta called out to her daughter for the first time with the Arrow of Artemis. You know, she cared for the safety of her daughter in man's world and wanted her to come back to her. Diana gains a new connection to her parents, both of them, while researching the Amazons' past, and by the end of the film, she's gazing off into the sunset as if she's going to try to find them again and reconnect with more of her roots. So, if they would have done that for the sequel, that would have totally made sense.
Yeah.
This film not coming out actually hurt the Wonder Woman sequel.
I feel like Patty Jenkins would have gone the 1984 route anyway, though.
Because she's such a fan of the TV show?
Yeah.
Ugh. And I also loved the music. You know, just when you thought the Wonder Woman score couldn't get any better, you just add some, like, lamentful chanting, and boom, it adds a whole new dimension to it that totally works.
No, I gotta disagree with you on that one. They used way too many lamenting chants every time she showed up on screen. Like, it just became unnecessary at some point.
I thought it worked really well. I actually really liked Tom Holkenberg's score throughout the film. I thought it was a lot better than what Danny Elfman did, which is surprising because Danny Elfman is really good.
This score was definitely much more mythical and epic.
It suited the material better.
Yeah.
Moving on to The Flash. Ezra Miller played the Flash, and his performance was one I was probably the most apprehensive about going into it. They just made him so awkward in the theatrical version, and he wasn't any less awkward here, but the added scene of him saving Iris set up the character a bit better and made him a bit more endearing. Having saved a woman, having played with dogs, you know, it makes him much more likable than just him scribbling on some guy's face.
I liked that scene, the face
fuck
scribble.
off.
It was great.
I think once you had like the whole Iris West saving scene, you probably didn't need more setup than that. Now, the Flash's displays of power in this cut were some of the coolest things I've ever seen on screen. We've talked before about the challenges of displaying powers that we've already seen before in movies. Typically, when it comes to super speed, filmmakers either go the Smallville route with like just a blur, or the Quicksilver in X-Men Days of Future Past route with like slow motion bullet time.
Yeah, and we mentioned last time that it was cool how they portrayed the Flash's powers as pretty much just teleportation with a lightning trail.
Right. They sort of did a mix of everything in this film, but they also did some really interesting new things, like when the Flash was literally flashing everywhere to save the scientists from the falling debris, or like the whole backwards time travel running at the end with the world reforming around him as he ran.
Yeah, that was cool.
So beyond amazing. The scope of this film and of what these characters can do is unbelievable. Now, the Flash's arc was about taking control of his life, or as his father told him, to forget living in the past and make his own future. He's a static character in that he didn't quite learn his lesson. You know, by the end of the film, he's still trying to get his father out of jail. But that's okay, because he pushed himself beyond his limits and learned that he can quite literally live in the past to quite literally make his own future. I'm really looking forward to the Flash film now more than ever.
Do you still feel like there's an aspect to this version of the character that is kind of Barry Allen in name only compared to how he acts in the comics?
Yes, absolutely. That said, people are always harping on Zack Snyder for his films being no fun with no humor. I actually thought The Flash brought a great balance here. You know, there were some scenes in the Joss Whedon version where he was cracking jokes, where in this version he was a little bit more serious.
Yeah, this movie definitely was not as humorous as Joss Whedon's version, but it is definitely more humorous than anything else Zack Snyder has done.
Yeah, exactly. I think Chris Terrio, the writer, took criticisms, you know, from his BVS script and adjusted accordingly. Moving on to Cyborg. Now, Ray Fisher's performance was amazing in this film. It was actually much better than I thought it would be. Zack Snyder has said before that Cyborg was the heart of this film, but I didn't quite get what that meant at the time. But I have to say, there were multiple moments during Cyborg's storyline that got me choked up. When Ray was in the car talking with his mom, when Dr. Silas was standing over his son's broken body in the hospital, crying and promising he wouldn't let him die, even the scene with the waitress woman that he helped, all of that was really powerful stuff.
Yeah. And Ray Fisher is just a great actor. When you watch him act, it doesn't even seem like he's acting. It seems like he's just embodying the role. It's really kind of too bad that he kind of torpedoed his own career.
Yeah. To bring in Walter Hamada, someone who had nothing to do with the Justice League film, to me was kind of unnecessary, but it is what it is now. We'll see how this film helps or doesn't help his career going forward. I personally think he did a fantastic job in this role, and I would love to see him get more work.
He has a lot of potential as an actor in terms of talent. I just wish he employed a little bit more tact off camera, because I think he could have gotten exactly what he wanted if he would have played his cards a little bit differently.
Absolutely. Now, Cyborg's arc in this film was all about accepting his father's decisions, to not see him play football, to turn him into a quote-unquote monster, to sacrifice himself to help his son save the Earth. Early in the film, Cyborg is pretty hostile towards his father, crushing the tape recorder his father gave him, just as Dr. Silas was talking about being his father. But by the film's epilogue, Cyborg had come to peace with himself and his father and finished the recording, learning that his father truly loved and cared for him. And we got to see that in the film. Like, Silas may not have gone to see his son play football, but you could see the wonder on his face to watch his son walk alongside the other Justice League members.
Well, Silas knew that his son was like a techno god. He told him as much in the tape recording. So yeah. I'm a little bit surprised that he was so surprised. Maybe it was just the realization of that took him aback. But
or just the admiration of it.
Yeah, it was nice to see his reaction. There were some parts in the script that didn't quite gel with me, like when Cyborg said, "fuck the world," despite the fact that he had just literally got done helping someone in the world by giving that lady some money that he was watching.
Yeah, I mean, he's a complicated, conflicted, multi-layered character. He may have wanted to help that one person, but she may not have represented the world, who he felt he really didn't owe anything.
It felt less layered and more inconsistent.
I can see that. I thought the display of Cyborg's powers were a lot better in this cut of the film. Like the jets that shot out everywhere from his body, the extra arms, watching inside his head how he symbolically viewed the digital world. It was all really cool stuff. Now, Aquaman was also really cool, but he's played by Jason Momoa, so no surprise there. His character sort of had the least amount of improvement in this cut, in my opinion, but it was still an improvement. Like, not as good as what James Wan did with the character in his solo film, but this Justice League cut did a lot more to set that film up. Like add the character of Volko. I forgot that he was even supposed to be in this movie.
I think the thing that I enjoyed most about Aquaman was how badass he was in a fight compared to the last version.
Yeah, his trident in this film made him a bit more on par with other members of the Justice League. He also seemed wiser and less brash in this cut. I don't know if it was just from his conversations with Diana or Barry, or him being the only member of the team this time to say, hey, maybe resurrecting Superman may not be such a good idea, but he seemed like a stronger leader.
I really liked his interactions with the Flash. They were kind of far and few between, but those two characters are diametrically opposite.
Yeah, they're foils.
They could not be more different, and yet they interact so well. I want to see an Aquaman and Flash team-up movie.
That would be great. Like in the theatrical cut, Aquaman's arc was still about being less of a loner and accepting more of his Atlantean heritage and legacy in order to help save the world.
And they kind of showed that he was worshipped or revered as some kind of savior character by that Icelandic town.
Yeah, they wrote songs about him and kept his sweaters and sniffed them as kind of awkward.
That song went on for way too long.
It was kind of weird starting out so early in the film. I was kind of what is this exactly? But luckily, they got the awkward part out of the way. The rest of it was great.
Do you feel like that was a little indulgent?
I think it was there for a purpose, for a reason, to show how they deified these Justice League characters. And they are godlike. That's sort of, again, what sets DC apart from Marvel. A lot of people describe the Avengers as heroes trying to be gods, and the Justice League as gods trying to be human. So playing up on the whole mythological aspect, I understand why it was included. Moving on to Superman. All I have to say is thank God this cut did not have Henry Cavill's creepy CGI mouth.
That alone is worth the ticket price. The HBO Max price.
Now, Superman actually appeared less in this film than I thought he would, partly because they cut the super awkward opening scene with him talking to those kids, but also because the film is twice as long. He doesn't make an appearance until chapter 5 and doesn't suit up until the final chapter. I kind of wish they would have explained the black suit a little bit more. In the comics, the black suit is also known as the solar suit, and it was used to absorb more solar radiation after he died so he could recover faster.
Yeah, I'm concerned some people will think that Zack chose to put him in the black suit for this movie just to maintain his dark edginess.
And, I mean, they never really explained that that isn't the case. He definitely comes across as a little bit darker in some way in this film.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird when he freaking burned off Steppenwolf's horn like a fucking sadist. All this blood's pouring out of his head.
I was like, damn, bro, take it easy.
Do you think that was too violent for Superman?
I think it was hinting at something darker going on with his resurrection.
And that certainly wouldn't have set well with Superman purists who have never enjoyed Zack Snyder's take on the character because it was really just Zack Snyder doubling down on the darker side of the character.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was intentional, honestly. I think the route that Zack has said he's wanted to go with this storyline, it would have led to a dark Superman, like Injustice.
But I want light Superman.
You would have gotten that at the very, very end of Zack Snyder's Justice League trilogy.
Ugh, it's too long.
Superman really didn't have a problem of, like, being too weak upon his resurrection in this film, though I really think he should have. Like, I would have much rather seen him and the League members react to him resurrecting as, you know, weak, unable to help, rather than have him have, like, temporary amnesia, like in both cuts of the film.
I thought Superman was just portrayed as too powerful in this movie. When he shows up, there are no more real stakes because he's just so capable. And I had that criticism for the last cut, too. It's no fun to watch. You know, you see Superman totally not get phased at all by Steppenwolf's axe. And I think that it should have because Steppenwolf is a new god. I don't care how powerful Superman is. You can't just do that.
I mean, you could argue that him putting on the black suit and going up to the sun, like, supercharged him so that he was, like, super Superman. I'm going to go with that.
It's weird that Superman was able to no-sell the axe attack to the shoulder, and yet Darkseid got his ass handed to him by Ares with an axe to the shoulder. I feel like that was done on purpose to show that really Darkseid is a pussy and Superman is just an overpowered character.
Well, I mean, when Darkseid took the axe to the shoulder from Ares, that wasn't Darkseid at the time. That was Uxas. That was like pre-Darkseid, before he got the Omega Force. And you could tell because his eyes weren't glowing.
And where did they explain this in the movie? I'm just going to say that was Darkseid and that Thanos could beat Darkseid because all you have to do is just take an axe to Darkseid's shoulder and it'll puss out. Thanos wouldn't have pussed out.
Pretty sure Thanos did take an axe to the shoulder.
And guess what? Right after, he killed half the universe. Darkseid gets an axe to the chest and then he's like, bye!
Again, it was Uxas. It wasn't Darkseid.
Okay. I'm just going to have to take your word for that, I guess.
Okay. Speaking of Steppenwolf, just to jump to him really quick. Other than Cyborg, he had the most improvement from the theatrical cut. Not only did he look a hell of a lot cooler, you know, replacing the scrotum cap with fucking knives everywhere, but his backstory had more of a hook. He was a disgraced exile of Apocalypse, trying to get back in the good graces of Darkseid in order to return home.
Yeah, they definitely explained his motivations better in this movie, and you kind of sympathize with him, and they may be due to the character model that they chose.
Yeah.
He had very sympathetic facial expressions.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he was the clear-cut bad guy of the film, but you're right, they also made him more sympathetic through his backstory, through his big eyes. Seeing Darkseid crush his skull at the end just made you kind of hate Darkseid a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe Wonder Woman a little bit, too, for chopping his fucking head off.
And what, Aquaman for impaling him too?
Yeah, for Superman for fucking disfiguring him. God damn, the Justice League was brutal.
They don't fuck around.
Okay.
I mean, Thor chopped off Thanos' head.
Yeah, but he was, not in the right headspace. This is Justice League on a good day.
Yes, exactly. You don't mess around with them. Imagine what the Justice League would have done to Thanos.
Oh, shit. Yeah, they would have fucking castrated him.
Yeah, through his chin, because that's like where his balls are.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
It really did help showing how much Steppenwolf feared and revered Darkseid in this cut as well. Like, it's clear in this film that Steppenwolf isn't the main threat, so the stakes are a bit higher.
Yeah, Steppenwolf is a stepping stone.
And like Wonder Woman, they also made him way more lethal and imposing in this cut. Just seeing him charge all the time and just like not being fazed by anything anyone was doing to him until the Justice League got involved, it was really great.
I was impressed by his armor, specifically in the scene when he was shot up full of arrows by the Amazons.
Yeah.
And
He just shrugged it off, literally.
yeah.
I also love that they didn't make him like a weird creepo who was like telling Queen Hippolyta that like she was going to learn to love him or something like that. That was weird.
That's just Joss Whedon projecting.
Exactly. Moving on to the plot breakdown, the film starts off with a prologue of Superman's death roar echoing around the world and awakening the mother boxes. It was kind of cool to have that callback to BVS in the same way that BVS had a callback to Man of Steel when it opened.
Yeah, the movies kind of bled into each other.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the film, as we mentioned earlier, is broken up into 6 different parts and an epilogue. First part, or first chapter, is called Don't Count on It, Batman. It starts off with Bruce Wayne traveling to a poor Icelandic village and trying to convince Aquaman to join his cause, to which he is unsuccessful. In London, Wonder Woman saves a group of hostages from a terrorist group's bomb. And that was a much better scene than in the Joss Whedon version.
Yeah, I like the extended version. I love the portrayal of her powers, especially in regards to the use of her silver bracelets to block the bullets from this automatic gunfire. It looked so damn cool.
Yeah, absolutely. What's interesting, though, is that this scene actually has no point to the rest of the film. It was just a way to sort of reintroduce Wonder Woman and her powers.
Yeah.
At the end of this first chapter, in Themyscira, where Wonder Woman is from, Steppenwolf arrives and takes the Amazon's mother box. As we just mentioned a little bit ago, the scene was so much more badass and emotional than the theatrical cut. Like, seeing all of those Amazons sacrifice themselves packed so much more of an emotional punch this time. And seeing Steppenwolf and the parademons just explode out of the water when that temple fell into the ocean, and I was like, oh shit, this guy's like a movie monster. He just keeps coming for you. Now, part 2 was called The Age of Heroes. Steppenwolf sets up his base in an abandoned nuclear plant in a deserted Russian town and sends his parademons out to find the mother boxes. Apparently they can smell their scent. Back at Themyscira, Queen Hippolyta fires the arrow of Artemis toward the shrine of the Amazons. And that arrow is pretty cool. And it's even cooler that you get to see like the context and history of that arrow later on.
Oh yeah, in the battle scene?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like missiles.
Exactly. Now, Diana sees the warning and discovers details about the ancient war against Darkseid.
Now, where was this secret area of the Amazonian temple located? Because I didn't see the opening.
Well, they had like a lot of excavation tools like around the shrine, and there were like workbenches and stuff like that. So I'm sure that the whole area was under some kind of archaeological study.
Okay.
Not that big of a stretch. Underwater, Vulko asks Aquaman to help protect the Atlantean mother box. Now, anytime any of the Atlantean characters spoke underwater, they created these air bubbles.
Yeah.
Which kind of really annoyed me.
It was very not in keeping with James Wan's Aquaman film, especially when later on when Mira was giving orders to the Atlanteans and you couldn't quite make out what she was saying and it sounded very underwatery.
And there were also points where she was like pointing and like squeaking like a dolphin.
Really?
Yeah. Did you see that? I don't get what the big deal about talking underwater is. I think they should have just gone with that, like in the Aquaman movie.
Yeah, it turned out to be not a deal at all.
Also, like, how did Vulko make the water bubble? Like, he doesn't have water manipulation powers like Mera, so I don't know.
Oh, that's true.
After that, Steppenwolf calls Desaad, and we learn that he's an exile of Apocalypse. Diana visits Bruce and tells him of the invasion and the history of the mother boxes. And she does it in this like really cool flashback showing the ancient war between all of the tribes of Earth and like a Green Lantern against Darkseid and his forces. We got to see a lot more of Yalin Gar, the Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Along with the Greek gods like Ares, like Zeus, like Artemis, all badass.
I thought it was cool how zealous Ares was in the battle and how he was the one that delivered that devastating blow.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Now, Darkseid revealed the Omega symbol that was carved into the Earth, the same one that the mother boxes revealed to Steppenwolf later in the film to let him know the anti-life equation was on the planet. What I'm wondering is, how did Darkseid forget that the anti-life equation was on Earth? Diana tries to explain it like in a throwaway line about how Earth became an anonymous planet among trillions to the new gods. But still, like, Earth was apparently the only world Darkseid had ever lost. You'd think he would remember where that was.
Yeah, he got beat there, the anti-life equation is there, the mother boxes were left there. How do you forget that shit?
He just passed out, and everyone else was like, let's all agree to just never talk about this ever again. It's kind of a big plot hole, I think.
Yeah.
Part 3 was called Beloved Mother, Beloved Son. It's in this part where we're introduced to Barry Allen, who saves Iris West from a car accident and visits his father in prison. He goes home to find Bruce Wayne, who recruits him for his team. That's still a great scene. I love that scene.
The Bruce Wayne scene?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do enjoy that. Did you get weird vibes when Iris West was like floating in the air, like about to die, with a total serene look on her face, and Barry Allen goes up to rescue her, and instead of immediately rescuing her, brushes the hair on her head aside a little bit and gazes longing at her, and then immediately reaches for a hot dog? Like, I got like real creepo vibes from that.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I did have immediate questions about the hot dog. But, I mean, he put it in his pocket right away, so it was fine. And as for the hair thing...
Do you want somebody brushing the hair on your head without you knowing?
They're made for each other. It's Barry and Iris.
Well, thank God, because otherwise...
Yeah. Way to ruin a beautiful moment for me.
Sorry. Do they ever explain Barry Allen's origin in this film, or are they saving that for his solo film?
That is something that I noticed. They don't explain it. They absolutely will have to touch on it in the solo film.
Yeah, because he got access to the Speed Force while getting struck by a bolt of lightning while working in the crime lab, but he doesn't get the crime lab job until the end of this movie, so I'm wondering how that happened. I'm sure we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, like the lightning bolt traveled back in time or something like that.
Yeah.
Also in this chapter, Victor reaches out to Diana through the Bat computer and asks her to meet him. They meet, but Cyborg refuses her recruiting effort.
I wonder why Cyborg reached out to Diana if he knew that he was going to reject the offer.
I think he wanted to reject the offer in person. I think he knew that they were looking into him, and he just maybe wanted to know why in person. Victor's father, Silas Stone, gets kidnapped by parademons. After which, Bruce and Barry meet Diana back in Gotham. Meanwhile, in Atlantis, Steppenwolf gets their mother box after fighting Aquaman and Mera.
That was a great scene. I really like the action beats in this movie. The fight between Aquaman and Steppenwolf was over so quickly in the Joss Whedon cut, it was ridiculous. And this, at least, the Atlanteans put up a fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially that part with Mera, like, pulling out Steppenwolf's blood out of his face.
That was messed up.
Damn! It did a good job of showing how much of a threat she was.
The chapter ends when Cyborg returns home to find his father missing and the bat signal in the sky. Now, earlier in this chapter, Cyborg sort of explores his power. There was a scene where he helps out that waitress woman.
Yeah.
I was on Twitter just kind of looking at everyone's reactions the day that the Snyder Cut came out. And the woman who played the struggling mother/waitress, I saw her on Twitter. She was like, I don't have HBO Max. My role was cut from Joss Whedon's version. Did I make the Snyder Cut? And everyone was like, yeah, you were in it and your scene was so great. That was really cool to see.
That is really cool. Wow. Hopefully she can get HBO Max and see it.
Yeah. Part 4 of the film was called Change Machine. In it, Cyborg, Batman, Wonder Woman, and The Flash talk with Commissioner Gordon and visit the Parademon's nest to rescue the hostages. They fight Steppenwolf for the first time, and Steppenwolf floods the tunnel, and Aquaman arrives, allowing the other heroes to escape.
Another great action set piece, a lot of great moments, specifically with the Flash and that moment where he's saving the people from the debris falling. I thought that was really cool.
I thought all of them had great moments in this scene. You know, Wonder Woman was a total badass going up against Steppenwolf. It looked so much better this time. Batman had his gauntlets and the Nightcrawler going for him. Cyborg was there with his extra arms and, you know, flipping over the Nightcrawler and stuff like that. The Flash saved all those people, like you mentioned, and Aquaman came in at the very end to save everyone from drowning. It was a great team effort.
Yeah, the force field that Aquaman created to stop the flow of water made more sense, given that it appeared his mom's trident did have some kind of, like, magic force projecting powers.
Yeah, totally, when it, like, slammed against something. In this case, he slammed the base against the ground.
Yeah. I liked seeing him surf that wave, too.
That was cool. Like, why cut that?
Yeah, so great.
Why cut so much from this scene specifically for the theatrical cut? It was all great stuff. I don't care if it's, 10 minutes longer. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Steppenwolf returns to his base and receives a vision from the mother boxes that the anti-life equation is on Earth. He contacts Desaad, and Darkseid orders Steppenwolf to unite the boxes and destroy the planet, at which point he will come to Earth to claim his prize. This is kind of like a big moment for Steppenwolf, because before Desaad was like, piss off, Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
Maybe when you come back with 50,000 more worlds, then we'll talk.
Yeah. It was strange, though, that Darkseid said that he had conquered 100,000 worlds, and then Desaad said that Steppenwolf had to conquer 50,000 worlds, so this seems like a lot compared to Darkseid.
Oh yeah, totally. Desaad did not like Steppenwolf.
No.
You know he was talking shit about him the whole time over on Apocalypse.
Poor Steppenwolf.
Exactly.
Like, especially at the end when Desaad was like, fucking told you Steppenwolf wouldn't be able to cut it.
Darkseid was like, dude, I know.
The new gods are so bitchy.
Totally. The League members meet and realize that they can use Cyborg's mother box to resurrect Superman. Martha meets with Lois to discuss their grief over losing Superman, and Martha turns out to be Martian Manhunter, which really did not make sense.
Explain this to me.
I don't know why Martian Manhunter would have been so interested in Lois Lane.
He figured she was important in some regard, I think, because he's really been spying on every single DC superhero thus far. That's what it made it seem like, because he knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman and stuff like that. And of course, he's a telepath, so maybe that's how it worked. But the fact that he was such in character as Martha Kent, even using like her Midwestern slang and everything like that, it was just so bizarre.
It did seem kind of reckless in the fact that, Lois Lane could be like, hey, Martha, remember that last time we talked? And Martha would have been like, I haven't seen you in forever.
Yeah.
They really shouldn't have made him Martian Manhunter. Like, they could have kept the end scene at the very end.
Yeah.
And not had this right here. It would have made the scene between Martha and Lois Lane
actually mean something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It would have been more heartfelt instead of just like a ruse. In part 5, which was called All the King's Horses, the League digs up Superman's coffin, and Cyborg hacks the Starlab security system to get access to the Kryptonian ship. The Kryptonian ship warns against resurrecting Superman, showing a vision to Cyborg of the nightmare future where the Unity is activated, and Lois Lane dies and Superman succumbs to Darkseid's anti-life, becoming his pawn. This was interesting because so far all of the nightmare sequences had only been seen by Batman, which makes you wonder, was the Kryptonian ship sending those visions to Batman all along? Or how is he getting those? And why is Cyborg all of a sudden getting them?
And does the Kryptonian ship have the ability to tell the future?
It definitely made it seem that way, especially when it was like, the future has now taken root in the present.
Yeah, I thought that was strange. I really wonder if they really had plans to expand where this all was coming from in future movies. They had to have.
Yeah, maybe they would have gotten like Booster Gold involved with the Kryptonian ship, or I have no idea. But they could have. It was cool to see Kilowog in that nightmare vision.
Yeah, you watched that part several times. I remember thinking it was really cool how the modern Green Lantern suits were depicted in the DCEU.
Yeah, it wasn't like the Ryan Reynolds version. It was more just like a green, shiny, metallic kind of look.
Yeah, as opposed to Ryan Reynolds, which was like this second skin, energy skin kind of.
Yeah, exactly. In the Kryptonian ship, the Flash charges the Mother Box, and it resurrects Superman. A battle ensues between a confused Superman and the others, but Lois Lane returns and snaps Superman out of his aggression, and they fly off together.
I do miss the Pet Cemetery line, but I enjoy the fighting more in this version.
I'm also really glad that, like, the slow motion reveal that Superman can follow and track the Flash was Zack Snyder's idea.
Yeah.
It was just hilarious. It was one of my favorite moments from the theatrical version. It's also great here.
Yeah.
Steppenwolf arrives, and Silas sacrifices himself to mark the Mother Box before Steppenwolf gets it and boom tubes away. And the League regroups at the Batcave to track the Mother Box's heat signature.
It was so tragic seeing Silas die.
Yeah, especially when it wasn't quite clear as to what he was doing or why he had just done that. I thought he was trying to destroy the box. Apparently so did Cyborg initially, until he saw the literal writing on the wall that explained what Silas was actually doing.
Yeah. It ended up pretty clever.
Yeah, it was. In part 6, which is called Something Darker, the League finds Steppenwolf's stronghold and formulates a plan for Cyborg to fuse with the Mother Boxes to separate them from being united. The League travels to Steppenwolf's base, where the Unity process has begun. Meanwhile, Superman dons a black Kryptonian suit and flies to help the team.
This is the scene that I think everybody wanted to see. It was so much better done. The way all the characters took out the parademons and their roles to play within this master plan at the end, it was fun to watch.
It was so fun to watch. And again, each of them had their own specific roles that really helped out. I love how Batman was like, the first one to go in. And not only did he take out the shield, but he took out a shit ton of parademons. And it was just so badass in the Batmobile doing that.
What did you think of that group shot? It was kind of reminiscent of the Age of Ultron shot of the Avengers all flying by the camera in the same shot.
Yeah.
But I think actually it was done better here.
I just know I want a poster of it. That would be awesome. It is a really fun scene.
Seeing Wonder Woman and Aquaman team up to fight Steppenwolf, that was really well done.
Yeah, and seeing Batman take out all the parademons while everyone else is on the inside fighting Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
The Flash, running around the city, trying to build up energy. That was super sad when he got shot.
How the hell did he get shot?
It was just a lucky shot. I mean, he was literally there almost every instant, so it was bound to happen. So yeah, the Flash gets shot by a parademon as the boxes merge, and the League sees Darkseid through a Boom Tube portal from Apocalypse. The mother boxes synchronize, and the Earth is destroyed. But the Flash goes intangible as that wave of destruction passes over him, which was really cool. He then runs so fast, he runs into the past, managing to hit Cyborg with a charge before the boxes sink. That was amazing. That's probably my favorite scene of the whole movie.
The music was really well done there, I think, too. And I think Ezra Miller sold it, for sure.
Yeah.
I like his lines talking about how he wishes his dad could see him, because he actually is among the best of the best.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. The scene proves it. Now, Cyborg and Superman together managed to separate the boxes. I did think it was really cool how once Cyborg was in the boxes, the three boxes themselves revealed themselves as him and his two parents, joined together. And don't you want them to be one? Don't you want them to be united?
Yeah, it was manipulative, and the boxes themselves kind of manifested as these three witches, the three fates or something, as they were being pulled apart again.
Yeah, that was really interesting, especially considering that they're called mother boxes,
Yeah. Seems like that's where they get their name from those apocalyptic witches.
Exactly. Really cool, interesting angle to that. And I love Cyborg's line about, I'm not broken. Things are fine right now. That's when he sort of makes peace with who and what he is.
Yeah, the moment of catharsis with that self-acceptance.
The League kills Steppenwolf and the portal to Apocalypse closes, and the League returns home. In the epilogue, which is called A Father Twice Over, Cyborg mourns his father, listening to the rest of that tape that he had given him.
How did he put the tape recorder back together?
That's what I was wondering. I almost would have rather have had his body absorb just the tape and it transform into a tape recorder on its own, rather than telekinetically put back together the broken recorder. That didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and I think that would work even better if it was a digital recorder as opposed to an analog recorder, but
We see Aquaman decide to visit his father, which would have set up the Aquaman film. And we see Ryan Choi being promoted to the head of the Star Labs research unit, studying the Kryptonian ship. And that was cool. If you're not familiar with Ryan Choi, he's the Atom, and you can learn more about him in our Atom versus Ant-Man episode.
Yeah, he is a protege of the Silver Age Atom, Ray Palmer.
And it looked like they were setting him up for the Justice League sequel, which would have been really cool.
Yes, yeah.
Bruce and Diana visit the rundown Wayne Manor and discuss turning it into a headquarters for their team. Now, Batman ran pretty loose with his secret identity in this film.
Yeah.
I imagine if they would have established a headquarters in Wayne Manor, everyone would have fucking known that he was Batman. It's no wonder Lex Luthor knew it by the end of this film.
Yeah. Well, he would have had to have kept the headquarters a secret, I assume. Or just say that he's financially backing the team.
There you go. Yeah, that could have worked. Lex Luthor escapes from Arkham Asylum and meets Deathstroke, revealing Batman's secret identity as Bruce Wayne. And again, I really want to see that movie. That would be a dope movie.
Joe Manganiello does have a great Deathstroke voice, I think.
Yeah, for sure. In another dream sequence / vision of the Nightmare World, Batman, Cyborg, Mara, Flash, Deathstroke, and the Joker meet and talk before an anti-life controlled Superman finds them and Bruce wakes up from his dream in the present.
Let's talk about this Joker scene. Fucking awesome.
It was really cool, and I know it was included because Zack Snyder wanted to give a slight taste of what the future of the Justice League story would have been, and it makes me really sad that we might not get that.
Most likely won't get it.
Yeah. It was a really kind of powerful scene. The Joker was just really fucking with Batman, continually referencing the death of Dick Grayson.
Yeah, I thought it was a great line when he said, "Why would you send the boy Wonder to do a man's job?"
Batman should have just beaten the shit out of him right there.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
The reach around line was a little weird.
That was an ad lib from Jared Leto.
That doesn't surprise me.
And I guess Jared Leto, like once that scene was done, he looked over to Zach and was like, that line's not going to make it in. And Zack Snyder was like, are you sure about that? I do really enjoy seeing Jared Leto back in the role, though. I think he did a much better job here than he did in the Suicide Squad film. And that was evident from the trailers. Yeah. But there's just something about his eyes, specifically. Like, they're always really round and wide and glossy. He could just hold his stare without blinking for so long. It is really creepy.
Yeah.
And that smile he gives when he says that Batman is just joking with him.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a great Joker smile.
It's like his smile just kept growing and growing and growing. It was creepy as hell. It looked like the creepypasta character. I can't remember his name. And actually, the cinematography when he was holding out the truce card, where the card was in focus and the Joker was blurry, there was something about that was super creepy too. Just seeing him in the background, kind of like
moving weirdly.
Yeah, moving weirdly with his weird smile.
It kind of reminded me of like the movie It, where you could see like Pennywise in the background. Ugh.
Yeah, yeah.
The line the Joker delivered about how Bruce was too much of a coward to just die. I guess in Zack Snyder's future plans, a pregnant Lois Lane dies, which is what causes Superman to succumb to anti-life. But Batman could have saved Lois Lane, and he keeps going back in time, trying to save her. It just doesn't work, until ultimately he realizes that the only way to save her was to sacrifice himself. So the line about how Batman was letting multiverses die because he wouldn't die really foreshadowed what was to come.
I really kind of wish they would have ended the film with Superman opening up his shirt. And I actually wish that would have been the blue suit in that shot too. But they should have ended the film there, put on the nightmare scene as a mid-credits scene, and then the Martian Manhunter shot at the very end of the credits. I think that would have helped the pacing of this whole thing flow a little bit better.
I agree, because the shot from the Superman symbol to the nightmare sequence was too hard of a cut.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. In setting, in tone, in everything.
It was just like, what? What is going on?
Yeah.
If you did have them as mid-credit and end-credit epilogue scenes, that I think would have been easier to digest.
Yeah.
Now, as for the Martian Manhunter scene at the end, I would have done that a lot differently. I would have had General Swanwick come and start talking with Batman, and then Bruce Wayne realizes during the course of the conversation that he's a telepath and forces Martian Manhunter to reveal himself.
That would have been cool, as opposed to, just the whole blasé kind of cavalier attitude that Bruce Wayne showed toward Martian Manhunter.
That was weird.
Yeah, thanks for showing up so long.
He almost found it funny. He was like, oh, here's another alien knows who I am. Yeah. It's like, dude, you should be concerned about that.
The potential implications are huge, especially considering he doesn't know about Mars. There could be an invasion from Mars coming or something like that, That was weird.
It should have been done much, much differently, I think.
Yeah.
At the very end of the film, it ends with a dedication that reads, "For Autumn." And Zack Snyder has gone on record during interviews saying that Autumn was really one of his few children that actually was interested in the superhero stuff he was working on.
Mm-hmm.
He has 6 children.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think Autumn was his oldest. I could be wrong. And I really do believe that end note on the screen that says "For Autumn." I really do think that he didn't make this for anyone other than his daughter. We know that he made it for no pay, and really not even necessarily a favor to fans. But again, I think as a sort of a cathartic way to wrap up that time of his life where his daughter tragically died.
That's sad.
Yeah. And just based off of interviews and stuff like that with critics from the New York Times and Washington Post and things like that, I truly think that Zack Snyder is done with the DC universe. As much as I would hope that he would continue with it, I think at this point he just really doesn't care and is looking to move on to other things. Maybe that'll change down the road.
Yeah.
But we'll see. There's been a lot of talk about his plans for what would have happened in Justice League 2 and 3. And I really hope we get to see those one day. but I don't have the highest of hopes at this moment.
Yeah. Well, and even if this is his last work, DC has shown that they're perfectly capable of moving on without him. He's set up a good foundation here. But you look at movies like Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Shazam, they could take what he's done and work with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be as much of a high art approach, again, as what he's trying to do, which is what I really appreciate. But you're right in that it may not necessarily be bad. Because I loved Shazam. I loved Aquaman.
Yeah.
I loved Wonder Woman.
And not everybody appreciates Zack Snyder's approach. They could still do the same content without his excess, I guess.
When it comes to visionaries like him, I'm not as concerned with mass appeal as I am just telling a really good story. And I personally feel like he does that. I do hope he found some peace with completing and releasing this. And I hope one day, you know, he's at a point where he feels like he could revisit it because we would all love it. There's a lot to appreciate here. Not only is it a vast improvement over the theatrical cut, but its existence is a credit to the fandom. Those of you who helped get this made truly are a Justice League, because you all got justice for this cut of the film, for Zack Snyder.
Oh, that's a good way of thinking of it.
It's also a huge milestone, as we mentioned earlier, in terms of the industry. It's disruptive. Will lengthy stories such as this be the new norm if the movie-going market chooses the home viewing experience over the movie theater experience?
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, typically, a movie's runtime will be around 2 hours because of movie theater scheduling.
Right. If you don't have to worry about that,
Yeah,
then you can have a movie be as long as you want it to be.
as long as the story dictates. So you'll start seeing more things like The Irishman and things like that. That's pretty fascinating.
It is. It's going to be really interesting to see how streaming affects storytelling going forward.
When you can watch things at your own pace, anything's possible.
Now, I think in part because of the impact it's going to have on the industry and the genre, and because the movie was just so freaking good, I'm giving it a half-star bump up from the theatrical version and giving it 4 stars.
Yeah, I think 4 stars is good. I mean, I have no doubt that the people who clamored for this movie got exactly what they wanted. That being said, there are a few issues inherent within the approach and the story itself that don't make it a perfect film. It is highly enjoyable. It is so much fun to watch at parts. It is also a little bit hard to sit through if you do try to make it through one sitting. I really do wish that they would have found a way to work out a deal with the actors and the other talent so that this could have been episodic, because I think that would have helped the experience.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe one day we'll get another Snyder cut. I doubt it, actually.
Well, we are getting the Justice is Gray version in a few weeks.
Right, and that'll have a little bit more footage with like the Joker and stuff like that. So who knows? You know, this might still all happen. We're not going to review that.
Oh, we totally are. Yeah, we're going to have 3 Justice League reviews.
Oh, God.
1 Man of Steel review, 2 BVS reviews, and 3 Justice League reviews. It just makes sense.
Oh, my God. But I think 4 stars is definitely what I would give this.
Yeah, and I would say that this is probably my favorite Zack Snyder film. I would say I enjoyed it just as much as Man of Steel, which we also gave 4 stars.
Yeah.
And I really liked that movie.
Yeah.
Along with BVS, the Ultimate Edition. But that does it for this review. Let us know what you thought about Zack Snyder's Justice League by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You can find links to all of our accounts by visiting our website, dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you could also find a link to our Patreon page where we offer bonus content and our very own Marvel vs. DC card game called Dynamic Duel War. So check it out right after this episode at dynamicduel.com/war. And note that our lowest tier on Patreon is only $2 a month.
Also on dynamicduel.com is a link to our merch store, where we sell t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, and more with our Dynamic Duel No Prize artwork. And this week, I think I might be drawing Superman. So check out our store if you're a fan. It'll probably get taken down right away, as have my recent Batman and Wonder Woman t-shirt illustrations.
That's crap.
So get on it while you can.
Our next episode kind of ties into this one because we did see a brief appearance by Kilowog. With the help from our executive producers, we pit him up against a great Marvel equivalent, I think, in that he's also a cosmic alien badass.
With a weird face.
With a weird face. We're going Kilowog versus Beta Ray Bill. A fight with a face that only a mother could love.
And me. This fight is going to be dope.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, can't wait. We want to remind everyone again to please subscribe to our show if you haven't, or please leave a rating or review on your platform of choice. Sharing this show on social media or in person is also a big help for us. But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson, Jace Crump, John Starosky, John Speas, Zachary Hepburn, and John Bechinina for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Up, and away.
True believers.